listening to the Marketing in Yoga Pants podcast, a podcast in sisterhood for female entrepreneurs that serves up savvy, actionable marketing advice and interviews with creative business owners who are in the trenches, building their businesses as we speak. The Marketing in Yoga Pants community is for you, the girl on her couch, in her yoga pants, top knot tight, hunched over her MacBook, trying her hardest to get the word out about her business. So in the name of supporting each other while supporting ourselves, bringing community, sound marketing advice, coffee, chocolate, and wine together for you, yoga pants wearing business owner, in a world where followers mean nothing, but paying customers mean the world, join us on this week's podcast episode and in our private Facebook group where you'll meet your soul sisters and build your business in yoga pants. Welcome back to another episode of the Marketing in Yoga Pants podcast. I'm Brit and I'm here today with Danielle LaRock, a breakthrough specialist for visionary entrepreneurs, change leaders, and world healers. Thank you so much for joining me today, Danielle.
I'm super excited to be here, Brit, and I've got my yoga pants on. I have a glass of kombucha. So not coffee, I had that earlier today, but kombucha, yeah.
I'm falling in love with kombucha, so I'm totally down with that. I might need to change my, I don't know. I'm never going to let go of the coffee piece of my brand, but I'm a kombucha fan. Oh yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I'm big on it too. I had a former client of mine has a kombucha business, so I'm really obsessed with what they produce.
That's exciting. And you know what? She's going to be so embarrassed that I said this, but my best friend, she brews kombucha as well. And she's working on that being part of her business too. So that's pretty cool. I can't wait to taste her stuff. So interesting little thing. And our guts are so happy, right? Like our guts are just like, thank you for this.
Totally.
All right. So that was a little sidebar that you guys all got to just listen to. But anyway, so Danielle and I first met in an email. She reached out. I checked out what she had going on her website, and I was refreshed. I really was. I was refreshed with what she was bringing to the table. And I'm really excited to get to chat with her today to understand more of how she is leading this business of hers and reaching the people that she wants to reach, get some insight into her business, her industry, her marketing strategy, and what makes it all tick. So Danielle, are you ready to jump in?
Yeah.
All right, let's do this. Okay. So first of all, Danielle, tell us how you earn your living.
So I earn my living by coaching change leaders. So I primarily work with people one-on-one and in like small retreat settings because I really like to work with people in depth. And my work is really just about helping people be their real selves and to be able to take their vision that changes the world and create a tangible impact with that.
So interesting. Okay, so I have so many questions, but I want to know first the backstory. So tell me the story of how you came to do this with your life.
It's definitely been like unfolding. And when people have been asking me that recently, I've been able to kind of connect back with where I was a few years ago when I was working I was actually in public service. I was working for the government. I had a really great job. I was doing stuff around like climate change and teaching curriculum around that. And so like on paper, it looked like I was saving the world, but I didn't feel connected with the difference that I was personally making. And I ended up leaving that job. I had gotten actually quite sick. I had like this recurrence of a chronic illness that I had been going through. And so I went around and I decided to kind of get more into like healing work, which led me into more like the personal growth sector and going to trainings around that. And then eventually led me into coaching, which I feel like coaching as a practice is so great because you can really make it your own and it can lead you into other directions and other arenas where you feel like you have strength and you feel called to. So I really just work with people who are like me, who like want to save the world in some way, who want to help others. And I feel like the biggest thing that I've noticed on my own journey has been me allowing myself and giving myself permission to just be myself and be bold and be unapologetic about who I am and put that into my business and work. So that's really what I'm passionate about helping other people do, is to put more of themselves into their work, their movement, their cause.
So interesting. Okay. So started in government sort of thing. And you know what really strikes me there is that government work tends to be really regimented. Like you have very little freedom to do your own thing. So did that rub you in a weird way? Because you seem to be quite a free spirit. And what was that like?
Yeah, it was so interesting because I got a master's in environmental science because I was actually in New Orleans when Katrina hit. So I was did a lot with like the rebuilding effort there, and went into environmental science thinking like that was sort of like my path, and then got into this fellowship program, which led into like government. And I remember it feeling like it didn't feel like it fit me. And it's not that I have anything against public service, because I totally believe that we need that. It just felt like I was putting myself in a box that didn't fit. And the piece that I realized that I wanted was I wanted ownership. And I wanted ownership of not only like my schedule in my life, but I wanted ownership of my own work, and to be able to like put my creative spin on things. And so it's kind of interesting because I've also done a lot of training around values and value systems, and the types of values that people have when they're working maybe for someone else or working in a more regimented setting are different than values that like an entrepreneur or a visionary might have. So it's not like that either is good or bad. It's just that it's about kind of understanding where you resonate and where you feel like you can express yourself most fully.
I certainly resonate with that. It's not like there's a wrong path. There just might be a wrong path for you and a right path for you. Oh yeah, I really like that. Okay, so tell us how you work with your clients and what does that process look like? Like what are they coming to you for and what do you work them through?
Yeah, so I feel like my clients are coming to me because they do have an idea. They already have this idea or this vision that they've been working on. And so they are connected to it in some way, but maybe in some way they're not completely sure like how to put their own like spin on it, or like how to really kind of be a conduit for that. So I work with people around creating what I call an authentic vision. So a vision that's where they're really connected to their own personal why. It's based on their own values, their own mission and philosophy, like how they're unique. So we create something that feels really like them. And then oftentimes, like I'm working with people who are naturally really creative and really visionary and like can see like the entire picture for like years down the road type of thing. So what I'm helping them do too is be able to create like a container or a vehicle for that vision, which I call the sacred offering. So that's like understanding not just at an intellectual level, but like a visceral level, like who you serve, why you serve them, how you serve them, like what are your solutions, like what is like the type of content, like because I work with a lot of like teachers, like thought leaders, like what is the content that really reflects that vision that you have, and then being able to translate that into an impact plan, which I've actually kind of changed the wording around that to like an impact path, because my belief is that we can have the best plan ever, but once you start engaging with it, things are going to change. So I really work with my clients to have like a really simple strategy that feels like it's coming from their soul. Like it's again, it's connected to their authenticity, and just help them continue to work through the implementation and follow through around that so that they can just get a lot out of the process. Like it's not just about the result or like achieving a goal. It's about the process that they take to get there. And it always ends up creating these learnings that they could have never anticipated. So I think the biggest thing that I do with my clients is I do provide a little bit of structure, a little bit of like helping them create some direction, but then I also just help them like trust the process and trust themselves and let it evolve in a way that feels really organic and natural.
That really speaks to me. And you know what what I want to just allow you to riff on a little bit and just get your perspective here is that, I get what you're saying. And I love your approach. I love the openness of the entire thing that you just explained. I can certainly resonate and dig that. I know definitely there's another type of person that might hear that and be closed off to it because it can feel to some people as just kind of like this pie in the sky theoretical, like, but what's the brass tacks here? Like, what am I actually doing? Do you feel that tension in your messaging or not? And if you do, have you just kind of embraced that? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think that it used to be something that I was really confused about. And I had gone like multiple ways with the way I approach things. But I really feel like the way that I work with people is the marriage of inner work and outer work. And that like it can't all be about being. Like I'm absolutely about inner work and self-exploration and like working towards enlightenment and self-actualization. I think that that's really important. And like I always clarify with people, like, I'm not a therapist, like, I'm not a trained therapist. And I think that there's definitely a time and a place to be working with a therapist. But I'm really about helping people take action from a clear, wholehearted space of like who they're being. Because when you have your energy aligned with like who you are, it's not going to be hard to make these decisions. You're not going to go into analysis paralysis. It's going to be like a clear line of choice as to like, okay, do I don't know, put a Facebook ad up or not? Do I contact this person in this way? Like, how do I enroll clients? Like, how do I go and talk to this producer about like getting my music out there? Like those are the types of questions that our mind goes through. But when we're actually really congruent with who we are, it becomes so much easier to take the action.
Yes.
So I'm really working with people like through this process of like, be who you are, like let that inform what you do. And then what you have just naturally comes from that.
Yes. Oh, man, I love this. Okay. So what would you say? Well, let me back up. You know what? I think you just gave some people permission to own that type of message. Just that whole thing. Those seekers, do you tend to work? I think I know the answer to this, but like your clients, do they tend to be seekers? Like really open to the possibilities?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think I naturally repel the people who like who kind of want like step-by-step how to, because because to me that's kind of no different than when I was working in the government. Like, I don't believe in paint by numbers approaches. Like, I mean, maybe it sounds corny. Like I used to use this phrase, I think in some of my messaging. It was like, I don't do paint by numbers because you're a masterpiece. Like, and it does sound corny, but it's like, it's true. Like, why would one way of doing something work for everyone? That makes no sense at all. And everybody has a unique situation and a unique setup. I mean, I live in a small town in West Virginia. Like it's about an hour and a half from DC. Like I'm not going to employ like the same strategies for my business that somebody in like a major metropolitan area is using. I also have a different business than like, for example, some of the people who I work with, it's more around like their art, or they're more of an artist than an entrepreneur. And so I think that like taking a program and just like placing it on someone isn't actually, one, it's not going to get them the results that they want. And then two, it's not going to feel right to them, I think is the main thing.
Yes, exactly. And I think that gives those listeners that are are tuning in right now that are thinking, that have been wondering, like, is that okay? Is it okay to work with those people willing to be open? And do I have to give like a hard and fast set of rules? And the answer is no. You can be a guide and you can have some methods and principles that allow you to know how you guide people, but it doesn't need to be hard and fast. And then for other people, it works more for their personality to have hard and fast rules and a set program that they put people through. And then that works for their personality. So I love the permission that's coming out of this conversation. And I wonder, what's your personal journey been like, learning more about yourself, and because of those learnings and that seeking, you've been able to build a business because of it. Just download some thoughts on that.
Yeah. I mean, are you asking more about like when you say personal journey, like personal experiences that don't necessarily have anything to do with business, or like personal journey within the work itself?
I just wonder, what have you learned about yourself that has allowed you to build the business that you have right now? And not anyone else's business, right? Like building it for your clients, but in your way, if you will.
Yeah. I feel like what I've learned about myself is a lot of the time when I was first starting my business, I'm really good at modeling people. Like that's part of my background and my training as well, is modeling. And I could kind of look at someone else's system and be like, okay, like I see how they're doing it. They're doing X, Y, Z. Like this is the place they're coming from. Okay, I'm going to do that same thing. But what I was finding was I was like, I keep putting this thing out there that like maybe is like a little bit of me, but it's not like completely me. And it wasn't really working or gaining traction. And it didn't ever gain traction for me until I started to realize that like, oh, like I can get inspired by what other people are doing or even other industries. And like, I can put this together in a new way. I kind of use the metaphor of like, instead of like going into other people's closets and like stealing their clothes and like putting them on myself and being like, well, this looked really cute on them, but like, it's not really like fitting me. Like I just decided that like I was going to take the approach and like make my own clothes. So, I mean, if somebody were to go to my website, they may see like similarities between like how I present things and what other people do. But I also feel like when I'm talking about my work or in whatever form it is, that people know it's coming from me. Like there's not this like question of like, oh, like, I think that there's not this question of like, she doesn't know what she's talking about, because what I'm talking about is my own experience and my own viewpoint on things. Yeah. So I think it's just, when we're talking about that permission piece, I think permission is so huge. Like it's giving yourself permission to just be yourself and like go down the path that feels best to you, and do it in the way that feels best. So for example, like I choose to not necessarily have like I have a little bit of structure and then I let it flow, because that's how I work like that. Like whenever I've been teaching or like running a training, if I get too like hung up on like how it's going to look, it ends up feeling really crunchy. But if I just show up with an intention and just let it go, that's where I work best. But for other people, they work differently. So I think it's about just understanding yourself well enough to be like, this is the way that I work best, or this is the way that I help people the best.
Yes. So where would you say, for someone that's really interested in this concept, where would you point her to just begin learning more about herself? Like where would that be?
Yeah, there's so many like awesome resources. Like I'm a huge book fan. Like I read a lot. I really love Martha Beck. I feel like Martha Beck is just a real person. And I mean, her books are, are broad enough that they could pretty much apply to anybody, but I feel like they could definitely apply to people who like market in yoga pants. Like, she's got some like fun exercises that help you kind of like think out of the box, like, and get in touch with that. So I really love her resources. The other thing too, for me, has been like, journaling is a really big thing for me. And it's kind of one of those really simple practices, but if you get a good question and you just allow yourself to sit with it and actually tell yourself the truth in your writing, like, you're going to probably amaze yourself. Like, I remember like a few years ago when I first kind of started using prompts with journaling, it was like one of the prompts was like, if I were not afraid, I would, or something like that. Or if I knew I could not fail, I would. And then I just let it go. And it was like, oh, like, it's right there. But a lot of times, like, because we have these other things in the way, it prevents us from then taking the action that we really want to be taking.
Yes. And you know what? You're the third person today that has mentioned how powerful journaling is. And I'm looking over here on the other side of my desk, and I have 2 journals of my 4 sitting right next to me. So I'm like, because, you have to have like, no, you don't have to have, but I tend to want to have more than just one, because it just depends on the day which one I want to write in. But I'm kind of weird like that. But yeah, I agree in the power of that. And certainly Martha Beck. Okay, cool. So I'm just so interested in what you do. So we got off the typical path a little bit, and I want to understand, kind of get back on it and understand, how are you attracting clients to your business right now? How are you finding most consistently earning your dollars?
Yeah. So one thing that I've like started doing recently that's been like very successful for me is I created a project. So basically it differs a little bit than like offering kind of like a one-off like free session. So this is probably speaking more to like coaches, service professionals, that type of thing. But it's been working really well for me because I was able to reach out to individuals, like reach out to past clients, reach out to like other people in like my network and community, like either invite people directly or just say, hey, I'm doing this project. Do you know anybody who this is a good fit for? I did that. And then I did like some writing that was like very much geared towards like that particular audience that I was calling in. And really between that and like a couple things on like social media where I did like a few posts with that, like the overview of the project. I remember when I first like set up the project and I opened it up, I was like, okay, it's going to be 40 spots. So like everybody gets like a 1-hour session. And I was like, I don't know if this thing is going to fill. And then what ended up happening is I had like so many people signing up that like the wait list like the project has more than doubled in size. So like now I don't actually really know what to even do with like all the people who have signed up because I don't have enough like time within like kind of this, this current timeline that I've put together to actually connect with all these people. So, I mean, I think that's like, it's one of these things where it's a great strategy and it's a great idea. But I think what makes that really successful is when like people can really feel your energy behind it. Like people can tell that like you really believe in this and that you've basically like kind of like stacked all of these things together. Like you've kind of gone these different roads. It doesn't have to be like a billion and 2 tactics, but like I think when people know that like you're really directing your energy into this container, people want to be around that. Like people want to be part of something bigger. So that's been working really well for me. I think anytime you can really connect authentically with people, that's when people are going to like enroll in like a coaching like relationship or a program or whatever it is. Like I think people don't just buy what you do, they buy like why you do it, and they buy like who you are. Like they're buying you in that way. So I think that the more that I've kind of put my own spin on things, that's also been giving me more traction.
And I wonder what you think about this. I mean, I know that some people right now are I don't know, burnt out by the word authentic, and they feel like it's not substantial enough. Like, I think the reason people don't like the word is because they don't know themselves well enough to know what their authentic self is. So when they hear show up authentically and they haven't done the deep work to get to know themselves really to the core, it just confuses. So from your perspective, would you agree to that? Have you noticed that as well? Like that kind of just distaste for show up as yourself, show up authentically, those types of things. I see it. I get how it works, right? But I also see people kind of be like, wait, what? And does it start with like, you got to get to know yourself, girlfriend?
Yeah. I mean, it might just be like the people that I'm connecting with, but I really haven't felt any pushback or like confusion around the word authenticity or even purpose. Like I use the word purpose a lot. And these are like words are just what we use to describe something deeper in us. So like we all are going to have a different definition or way that we think about a word. And for sure, like there's certain words that like don't land with me, and I have kind of like a charge around them in some way that like therefore I'm not going to use that word because it doesn't really feel like me. But I think for me, like the word authentic or the word authenticity, like for me it's one of my top values, and I feel like because I know what that means to me at least, like, and I can tell when I'm not doing it, like it's just part of the way I want to live my life. And so like when I'm in like a session with someone, I mean, I feel like being authentic is just allowing yourself to be present with someone else and to just be with someone else and recognize that none of us like have it all figured out or have all the answers. And at the same time that there's a lot of power there when we're willing to like ask ourselves some big questions. So yeah, I guess to answer your question, I haven't had any challenge with the word authenticity. In fact, I think that like it's kind of like my tribe, I think really jives with that word.
Well, and that's what I love so much about your answer, because you're showing up as you. People like you, people already on your same vibe are being attracted to you. And therefore, I mean, when something so core to you is authenticity and you live that out, the people that are attracted to that also probably have a core value in authenticity. So that word for them is like, well, yeah, which is the power of showing up as you, because you'll naturally attract the people that value the same things. And it's not so hard to market and then sell to them. It's just natural. It becomes so organic and natural. So your answer was just like so perfect. Like, this is so good. I love it.
Yeah, I really love this too. Like, cause it's about like kind of going back to that whole values thing. It's like when you know what you value and like what's really important to you and you're clear on that and you're, kind of creating your life around that, because values can shift. But like, and actually like that's another like resource that I'm thinking about, back to your question with the like how do kind of people connect more with that, is a values elicitation. So that's like something, it's actually a really simple process, but it provides like so much clarity around that. And so like that's actually one of the resources on my website, because it's again something that you can do with yourself and really get a lot of clarity on like maybe your word isn't authenticity, and that's totally cool. Maybe like the word authentic just like makes your skin crawl. That is totally fine. Like, but maybe there's like another word that like you have that like that really does land with you. And so I think you just got to use like the lingo that feels best to you.
Absolutely. And the people that will be best served by you will be your absolute best clients, most raving fans. Those words are going to set well with them too. So you might as well use them,
Yeah.
And if someone has like a problem with a word that you're using, think about would I want to work with them? Is that my ideal client?
Yeah.
And if they're not, they're just a peanut gallery person. Like, you don't even have to listen to them, for real.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that I feel like the power of like all of this is it's just like, it gives so much more freedom. Then we're not like afraid to like say things the wrong way, because like, I can't tell you how many clients I've had. They're like, but like, what if I like, do something this way and like, it doesn't work? And I'm like, well, what if you do something the way that like doesn't feel good to you and it doesn't work? Like, then it's really going to feel crappy,
extra crappy.
You might as well, like, you don't know what the result is going to be. Like we don't have control over our results. Like all we can do is show up and be engaged in the process. And I feel like then that is what will yield the results.
Yes. Amen, sister. Okay. This is so good. So this is kind of random and was not on the questions that I gave you, but nor were most of the questions I've asked. We've really gotten like, we've really dug in there. But I wonder, what's your personality type? If you know that, based on like Myers-Briggs or 16 personalities?
Yeah. So, yeah. And I love like all of like the personality stuff, like Enneagram, Myers-Briggs. I've done like behavioral matrices and things like that. It's so cool. I love like knowing more about who I am. So I am an ENF, and then the J and the P can vary. I think that in my work and when I'm kind of just like in my week, I'm a J, but then like I've also like gone on like a 6-month like journey to like Thailand and India and was just like going with the flow and just like being wherever I wanted to be. And I didn't have like a plan. So like, I think that's where, like we were talking about with the way I do things, like I have a little bit of structure, but then I have some flow in there too.
Yeah.
But I'm a major F. I'm like super F. Like super feeler. So so I do resonate a lot with people who are like empathic or intuitive or like just tend to like pick up on other people's emotions or like tend to be really emotional. Like, cause I can be like that. Like I can be like kind of intense in that way. And so I feel like I can kind of hang with the intensity of the feelers in that sense.
It makes so much sense. And I think this will probably surprise some listeners because for a long time I called myself an introvert, and I will tell you right now, I'm not an introvert anymore. And that can shift. Like that really, truly 100% can shift based on phases of your life, I swear. Anyway, and also I was never like a hard introvert. It was more like I was kind of in between anyway. And I think through my corporate background and just the phase in my life, I wanted to be more introvert, and that was like my safe space. And now that I'm kind of blossoming and feeling more comfortable in the space I'm in right now, the extrovert can come out again because there's a little confidence there. Anyway, I think because I'm an ENFJ, I tend to attract a lot of NFs. And if you guys are like, what are these people even talking about? Please go to 16personalities.com and take the free personality quiz to understand. That is like just go do that if you've never done it before, because that may be your first step in just learning a little bit more about yourself. But I tend to attract people in that category with the N and F letters. And so I know that a lot of our listeners are in that category too. So a lot of what you're talking about, they're like, oh yeah, this is my kind of girl. Yeah, I like it. So I was just curious. I always love to know that if I can. So that's why we went there.
I think that's great. Like I'll have my clients do, like if they haven't done things like that, like, cause a lot of them have, like, because they're into that too. Yeah. But like, just like have a conversation around that. Like Enneagram is another really great resource too. Like just like all these resources.
Wait, so now I have to ask, what's your Enneagram number?
I'm a 7.
So, are you really? Yeah. Oh, that's so fun. Actually.
Like 7's like the 7 Enneagram personality type is like the person who likes to have fun.
Yeah.
But like the thing that I like about all these personality tests is that they also give you some clarity too around where you struggle.
Yes.
And so I've been able to kind of work around that, and I can kind of tell when I'm like not fully, being a kind of more the actualized 7, and I'm kind of falling into the other aspects of that aren't maybe as positive.
Yes. Yes, I really enjoy the Enneagram. That's kind of a newer one for me. And again, you guys, if you don't know what we're talking about, we'll link to all of it in the show notes. Again, another level of just trying to understand yourself so you can show up authentically, and own it too, right? Like once you're aware of these things, you can face them, and then you have the opportunity to own those things and stand in who you are. So yeah, Enneagram is interesting, and I do love the pieces where it's like, yeah, this is how you operate, which is cool. And this is also how you operate, which could incredibly, I mean, just exponentially hold you back, specifically in your spiritual life when it comes to your Enneagram and social and emotional and all those other things. But really interesting. I would
Yeah.
love to just continue riffing on this, but I don't know. We might have lost people at this point.
And it applies to your business and
It
how
totally
you
does.
market too. Like, like as a 7, like there are things that I'm like, oh yeah, this is fun. Like this is good for like this kind of like high energy, like joyful personality. And then there's other things that like I probably won't do because it's not really as in alignment with that.
Right, exactly. Okay, so cool. Okay, so let's get a little bit back to your business. I'm curious to know, what are you working on right now? Where's your focus at?
Yeah, so this has been like a really cool thing, and I haven't even really talked to a bunch of people about it, but I'm actually kind of scaling the type of work that I do in some way by creating a like collaborative enterprise. So I've been getting really into what's called social enterprise, which is basically a business that has a triple bottom line. So it's like it's good for the business, it's profitable for the business, it's also good for its clients, but it also has a social and environmental like bottom line, like that they want to help in some way. So like for example, like Patagonia has like some social enterprise aspect to it, in the fact that a lot of their efforts are towards environmental, like preventing environmental degradation, things like that. So I'm getting really into that. So I'm basically creating this collaborative of a team of other change leaders, and we're all coming together to be able to support other change leaders, because I feel like that's really what this is about. When you want to make a big difference in the world, you are playing like at your edge, and your stuff's going to come up, and you need a community, and you need access to resources to be able to keep going with that. And so that's really where I'm at. It's called The Haven. I'm still in the process of kind of like building the site, but it's yourhavenwithin.com. So again, kind of related, the whole premise of it is that when you come home to yourself, then you're going to know exactly what you need to do to make a difference. So that's what I'm really excited about. And it's been kind of like a dream of mine that I've been like working on behind the scenes for a while. And it's like starting to come out into the light. I'm excited about it.
Sounds really exciting. Where can we go to learn more about this social enterprise idea? Because I think that's an interesting concept that we might not hear a lot about in our like small business world. Like that's a
Yeah,
little,
yeah, and
that's a bigger thought. So where could
yeah,
we
it
go to
is.
learn more?
Well, if you Google social enterprise, that definitely helps. Google is great for everything. But I
Yes.
think that I got a lot of information actually from the Social Enterprise Alliance. It's C. And like, I think people in the small business community will see that and like kind of start to see like, oh, like this is where there's kind of an overlap, and this is where it sort of differs, because I think social entrepreneurship really is kind of in some way like this marriage of like the business world and the nonprofit world. So I really want to like become better versed in that so that I can be like serving that group as well, because I feel like again there's kind of like this different set of values if you're running a social enterprise. So yeah, Social Enterprise Alliance is a great resource for that.
That's incredible. And I can see just by studying the patterns of the millennial generation and generations to that are coming up behind the millennials, I think that really speaks very well to what they're going to be looking for. I mean, the surface level stuff is just not going to be okay anymore, right? It's got to go deeper. And I think you're a millennial. I'm a millennial. I think our generation is showing that like hot and heavy right now, but it's going to get even crazier, I think, as the time goes on, because our younger generations, they even see it clearer than we do. I think they see between the lines, and just as much as we feel we need a deeper connection with the brands that we buy from, oh baby, younger generations, they're feeling it even more than we are. And so that idea is, it feels very expansive to me. That's super interesting. That's so cool. Okay. So we got to wrap this thing up, girlfriend. So one last question we have to end with. Looking back, I would love for you to tell us, what advice would you give to yourself when you were first starting your business? That girl on her couch, hunched over her MacBook, trying to figure all of this out. What would you say to her?
I'd say, it's okay to take your time. There's really no rush, because all you're working towards is to be yourself, which you are already doing that. So just be the boldest version of you, ask for help, receive help, receive support, and just know that you're already enough, that this thing that you're creating is coming from you. It's not defining you.
Man, that was well said. Whew, that was really good. All right. Before we head out, could you please tell the listeners where they can find you online?
Yep. You can go to my website. It's DanielleLaRock.com. My last name is spelled like it sounds, LaRock, like the rock. So you can go there and just keep in touch that way.
And your site is super cute, so definitely go over there. I don't want to say super cute, but it's just you. I mean, it's just, now after talking to you, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. Definitely showing up your true self on your website. So that's cool. All right, you heard her, girls. Go check her out, send her some love, and then hop into our private Facebook group to hear even more from Danielle over the next few days. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Marketing in Yoga Pants podcast. Keep the conversation going by visiting marketingin.yogapants.com/Facebook, where you'll get to join that private Facebook group I've been talking so much about. There, you'll get to chat with our podcast guests. Yeah, they're in there too. And all of the other brilliant creative business owners. We're connecting, we're meeting our soul sisters, and we're building our businesses, all while in yoga pants. So come